Alright, Assalamu alaikum everyone, and today we're actually going to be speaking about the Idgham Mutajanis. Last time we did talk about the Idgham, the different types of Idgham, and we talked about Idgham al-Mutaqarib, Idgham al-Mutaqarib. So this time we're going to talk about Idgham al-Mutajanis, and also when we're talking about different types of idgham, there's also last time we talked about idgham al-mithli, mutamathil, and today we're going to be talking about two types of idgham mutajanis and idgham mutaqarib. Now there's a slight difference, so don't confuse yourself, because idgham al-mutajanis and idgham al-mutaqarib and idgham al-mutamathil. So idgham al-mutamathil is the type where two letters are the same. They're actually the same letters, just like the last time that we did them. And idhab bi'asaka, udrib bi'asaka, idrib bi'asaka, two letters, the same thing, in where we put those two letters, combine them into one letter, and idrib bi'asaka, as if there was one bet. Versus when we're talking about idgham mutaqarib, which is right there. The idgham mutaqarib is different because idgham al-mutaqarib, you are actually talking about letters that have certain descriptions. So here we go. Let's look at them. I want you to see these combinations where they would have very close makhraj. The makhraj is basically the place of articulation for that letter. Remember, the place of articulation could be the tongue, could be just the inner vacuum within the mouth, or the emptiness within the mouth, or can be al-khayshum, which is the nasal letters. And when we're looking at those letters, or even the halq, which is the throat, so it can be the throat, it can be the inner mouth, the inner part, that inner part. It can be the halq, which is all the way the guttural letters, all the way to the very bottom. Those would be all the way to the guttural letters. It can be the tongue letters. So those are 17 different letters, and it can be the khayshum, which are the nasal letters. Now what you could see is that they're really close in their place of articulation, but the difference is really sounding different, meaning the description of them. Let's just see some of those letters. And s. Now what I want you to see, the reason why I put that is especially if the person is not Arabi, sometimes they would lose as to where it is s. If you try to articulate it, you could see that they're really close in their place of articulation, or where they stand at the end. Let's see the you could see that it's also at the tip of the tongue, with the two buck teeth on the top, kind of clipping on those letters at a specific place. You could see that with the as if you're going to bite your tongue while you're saying it. Let's see you could see there all the way to the back of your throat, versus ek is closer to the middle of the mouth than which is really deeply hanging in your throat. Very much sounding also similar, but you really have to pay attention closely to see that slight place of articulation and how they're different. Or you could even have that they could also have very near articulation. You would have to do it as I'm doing it, kind of do it and really see what we're talking about. What you're doing, the L is really on the tip of your tongue, and so is the Ra. So those are pretty much those combinations where you've got the Da, the Sa, the Da, the Va, Qa, Ka, the, Za, La, Ra, and you want to really articulate them and kind of let yourself blend with seeing where that letters are, or where those letters are. And you could also have that certain letters, they have very similar in their description, in where you could describe them, whether it's the thickness, or whether it's the speed that it comes out of, or whether it's that shidda, where it requires both of your upper and lower jaw to blend in order to collapse on that particular letter. But you can have them having a different place of articulation. Let's see the j, the j. Try to put an before it in order to notice it. They definitely have two different places, and that's why they're really different in their exit, that they are from. But they have similar articulation, and that's why in certain cultures, in certain countries, they may actually sound these letters the same. So we have a lot of people that will make the and the za together, for example. They'll confuse them both, or the ja and the tha and the ja, and sometimes the qa and the ga, and those different forms of ways of flipping the different letters. And it's really amazing that in certain cultures, in certain Arabic accents, they will be flipping those letters just because it makes it easier to articulate. For example, in Kuwait, instead of saying rajal, which means a man, they'll flip the ja into a ya, rayal. In some Palestinian dialects, they will flip the qa into an a. So instead of qala ala, which is the dialect that I speak, we'll flip the qa into an a. In some dialects, they'll flip the ka into a cha. So instead of rabbuki, rabbuchi, they'll flip the ka into a cha, which is actually called a kashkasha. And in some accents, they'll flip the sa, the letter sin, into a ta, ironically. But this is actually part of certain Arabic dialects, or in certain cultures, they might flip the qa into a gha. So instead of qala, ghala, and that's Sudani accent, and where it's flipping the qa into a gha. Those are part of the Arabic accents, just to note. It's just that these dialects were spoken by certain Arabic tribes, but those dialects, they pretty much did not maintain at least the academic part of it, in where the preservation, and the only dialect that was preserved is really the Qurashi accent, which is what was preserved by the Quran, which is the Qurashi accent right there. So let's move on when we're talking about these letters. So what about them? So what about these letters that have these really similar, very close places of articulation or description? So what do we have to do with these? In the first kind, where you would have the first letter, it would have a sukun. So let's look at it. إذ زين فقد ظلم قد سمع. So here it is. The first letter would have a sukun, and the second letter would have fatha, dhamma, kasra, a haraka, just a general haraka. All right. So in that situation, you need to articulate them, meaning them, the first letter and the second letter, as clearly as you see it, which is called idhar. So you're not going to say qas sami'a, you're going to say qad sami'a. Note, this is based on the Hafs bin Asim rules. This is not to be applied on the other qira'at, because other qira'at will have their own rules. So you've got a qira'ah that will actually read it as qas sami'a and not qad sami'a. Just keep that in mind. So in Hafs bin Asim qira'ah, they will read it as qad sami'a, because they will consider that this is not to be put together, not to be assimilated. But in the other qira'at, they will assimilate it. So just keep that in mind. Why is this important to learn? Well, this is important to learn, at least if you're learning qira'at Hafs bin Asim, just to make it easy for you, without even going into all those details, just to make it easy for you. It really is Idgham Mutajarib. It's really when you've got the lam that has a sukoon, and the ra following it, or the opposite, or when you have the letter qaf and kaf, the qaf would have a sukoon and the kaf would have some kind of a haraka. All right, so Hafs and Asim, they'll just say that's the only time where we're going to consider it, is when you have the lam that has a sukoon and the letter ra, you're going to blend out that ra together. So you're not going to say qul rabbi, you're going to say qur, qur, qur. What are you going to do? You're going to totally omit that letter lam and you're going to blend it with that letter qur rabbi. And same thing, when you're going to look at alam nakhluqkum, you're not going to say alam nakhluqukum, alam nakhluqkum. What happened to the qaf? It was totally eliminated, and the only thing that you focused on was really the kaf, which is the following letter in this example. Let's see another one right here. Bal rafa'ahu. What are you going to do? Here it is, the lam and the ra. So in this situation, if you just at least memorize that it's the lam and the ra and the qaf and the kaf, that's enough. Even if you didn't memorize all the previous letters that we had given, which are these combinations, even if you didn't memorize these and you just memorize that it's the lam and the ra and the qaf and the kaf together, when they come together, the first one has a sukoon and the second one has some kind of a haraka, we're just going to let the first letter get eliminated and we're going to focus on the second letter. All right, so that is enough for you to remember if you're pretty much wanting like at least the very beginner's level. But if you are taking and wanting to go for further qira'at for in the future, so just keep these in mind, these combinations in mind, and also remember that in some qira'at they will actually blend these letters. They won't say qad sami'a, they will say qas sami'a, faqad zalama, وإذ زين إذ جاءوكم. So you want to just keep that in mind, is that you will have some qira'at reading it otherwise, but for qira'at Hafs and Asim, no, we will just do the idgham mutaqarib only for these pretty much three words. قُلْ رَبِّي نَخْلُقكُمْ بَلْ رَفَعَهُ بَلْ رَفَعَهُ أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُمْ. What did I do? I took out the qaf here, took out the lam here, and then there, that was the idgham mutaqarib, simple as that. But just keep what I said in mind. Now the other part is that you want to keep, again for qira'at Hafs and Asim, you want to keep note is that you can have the first letter in both letters that it would have a fatha or a dhamma, which is called mutaharrik. So the word mutaharrik simply means that it has a fatha, dhamma, kasra, etc. So here, when we look at both of them having mutaharrik, so we're not going to say عدد السنين, we're just going to say عدد سنين. You're going to read it in the form that it was written in, which is clearly here. Careful, look at this قال ربي. You're not going to say قال ربي, قال ربي, because the lam here, you might say, well look, I thought you said the lam and the ra right there. Right, we said the lam and the ra, but only if the lam had a sukoon. If the lam doesn't have a sukoon, then that's not included in the example that we had given earlier, which is here. This is قُلْ رَبِّي. This is only if the lam would have a sukoon. Lam would have a sukoon and the ra would have a fatha, dhamma, etc. Then that's when you're going to do that blending. All right, let's go for the other one. قال ربي, قال ربي. You're gonna read them as clearly as they are written. When where the lam would have a fatha, قال ربي, and قال ربي. بعد ظلمه العرش سبيلا, or من بعد ظلمه. This is بعد ظلمه, my bad. بعد ظلمه. Not going to say anything else because both the dal and the dha would have a haraka here, so you're not going to blend anybody. العرش سبيلا, العرش سبيلا. So right there, العرش سبيلا, العرش سبيلا. You're not going to say العرش sabila. No, you're going to say al-arshi sabila. What are you going to do? You're basically going to read it as idhar. Idhar means total manifestation. It's going to be totally manifest. It's going to be totally clearly as what you see to be read. There's the other part, which is if you are to have the opposite, in where the first one would have the fatha, dhamma, etc., which is haraka, and then the second one would have the sukoon. Again, it's the same thing in where it's going to be clearly manifested. It's going to be clearly manifested. So if to make that easy, if you just memorize just this and you say, well, if I've got the lam that has a sukoon and the ra that has a fatha or a haraka, and or the qaf and the kaf, the qaf has a sukoon and the kaf has a haraka, in that situation I would have what is called idgham mutaqarib, in where you're going to take out the first letter. You're going to take out the first letter and then you're going to blend it with the following letter. So in that situation, that was the only situation that you would do what is called idgham mutaqarib, meaning all the other examples for riwayat Hafs an Asim, no matter what combination, if it isn't these two right there, then it's not going to be that idgham mutaqarib, and it will be read as manifest as is. That's the most important thing. So the only one that you will practice in a type of idgham is really in this situation. All the other ones, they're going to be clearly read as manifest as you could see. So the other type of idgham that I wanted to talk about is actually called Idgham Mutajanis. The Idgham Mutajanis, what you could see is that you've got two letters that would have the same place of articulation, but the description is different. So I want you to look at these, the ta and the da, the, va. If we actually do that form, at, ad, al, al, ath, you see it? At, al, and especially for people that are not used to the letters. Many times, for example, in certain countries, they might read the tha into a sa and the tha into a za. This is very common, or even the tha into a dha or za, or the va into a za, which is really common. This is dha, not za, and I have that problem with a lot of different countries, in where they might actually articulate those differently. So again, at, ad, at, ad, at, ad, and notice how their place of articulation, at, ad, and that ta is very tip of the tongue versus the d, ad. You're putting in some pressure right there. Ad, al, al, and the both of them are the tip of your tongue, as if you're biting your tongue. Ad, al, ad, al, ath, ath, ath. What you're doing right here, this is more the tip of your tongue. This is a little bit more the tongue pushed out, as if you're biting it. At, up, and what you're doing, the most important difference between these two, at is that you're giving like a smile, up, you're making that full big mouth, which is called التفخيم right there, and that's what's making that most important difference between the two. Now here, in those situations, all you need to do is that you've got these examples, all right, and what you're going to do is that you're going to take out, here we go, what you're going to do, you're going to focus on the following letter, all right? So here, instead of saying أثقلت دعوة, no, you're going to take out the ta and you're going to pressure that da. أثقلت دعوة, أثقلت دعوة. Did you hear that? What you're going to take out, you're going to take out that ta. أثقلت دعوة. Right here, همت طا, همت طا. So careful from saying همت طا. No, همت طا. You're taking out the ta and you're pressing on that ta to blend it in. همت طا. Look at this one. يلهذ, not يلهذ, and then you're putting in lot. Now it can be really tricky and challenging, so let's smooth it out. يلهذ, يلهذ, يلهذ. You're taking out the tha, you're putting the dhal to be that your point of articulation right there. Look at قد تبين. You're not going to say قد تبين and say, well, here it is, the dal has a sukoon, therefore it needs to be given the qalqala. Nope, in that situation you're going to do what is called mutajanis, الإدغام المتجانس. What are you going to do? قد تبين, قد تبين. Take out the dal. قد تبين. Look at إذ ظلمتم. Now, careful, you're not going to say إِذْ ظَلَمْتُمْ and feel like, oh, I need to now jump on a new letter. You're going to put it together. إِذْ ظَلَمْتُمْ إِذْ ظَلَمْتُم. Now, إِرْكَبْ مَعْنَا right there, you're going to take out the ba totally, and instead of saying إِرْكَبْ مَعْنَا, you're going to say إِرْكَمْ مَعْنَا. You're going to take out that ba, you're going to take out the ba, and you're going to press on the meme. إِرْكَمْ مَعْنَا. And that's the only time. So you're never going to see a ba and a meme where the ba is with a sukoon and then a meme, but in that particular ayah. Period. There's no other place. إِرْكَمْ مَعْنَا إِذْ ظَلَمُوا. So here we go. إِذْ ظَلَمُوا and إِذْ ظَلَمْتُم. So these two, you could see that they kind of appear more frequently than others. Now these letters, the tha and the qa, the ta and the ta, the tha and the dha, the dal and the ta, the dal and the dha, and the ba and the meme, which is the only place in Surah Hud, and the and dha. Those are the only letters that you're really going to take out the first letter and combine it with the following one. All the other examples, even though the letters and the place of articulation sounds really close, what you're going to do, you're going to read it as manifest as is. So you're not going to say الصالحات طوبى, الصالحات طوبى. Why? Because none of them have a sukoon. So الصالحات طوبى, الصلاة طرفي, الصلاة طرفي. So you're not going to say and say, where's the ta and the ta right there? They're really similar. Ta, ta, there you go. No, you're going to, because both of them have a haraka. الصلاة طرفي بعد توكيدها. You're not going to say بعد and say, well, here it is, the da and the ta, let's combine them. بعد توكيدها, بعد توكيدها. You're not going to press on it. So بعد توكيدها. You're not going to change anything. You're not going to press on anybody. You're not going to blend anything. All right, and same thing where you would have the first one is the first one might have, look at that meme in the ba right there, where the first one has a haraka and the second one has a sukoon on it. All right, look at this. مبعدون, المبتلين, المبعوثون. I know you probably remember إِرْكَمْ مَعْنَا, and you say ba and meme right there. So this is not, yes, they are the same combination, but the rule is absolutely different. Why? Because the first letter is meme, and the ba after it has a sukoon, yes, but although they are the same letters, إِرْكَبْ مَعْنَا, the ba and the meme, but remember the meme here has a fatha and the letter ba has a sukoon. So in that situation, you're going to read it as manifest as is. مبعوثون, مبعدون, لا مبتلين. You're not going to eliminate anybody. It's going to be manifest. And just a note for the ta and the ta. So when you're actually reading this, you want to keep keep it in attention that when you فَقَالَ أَحَطْتُ, you want to make sure that the ta, yes, it's going to be eliminated somehow, but you want to preserve that thickness of the letter ta there still. فَقَالَ أَحَطْتُ. You want to make sure that the ta, لَإِن بَسَطْ 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 بَسَطْتَ بَسَطْتَ بَسَطْ. There's that ta in where you want to make sure that you're giving it that thickness. فَرَّطْتُمْ فَرَّطْتُمْ. Now what you want to make sure, that that ta thickness is at least vibed and vibrated into the following ta that's coming with it. That's it for the letters for the Idgham Mutajanis and Idgham Mutaqarib. It's really easy, and even if you forget everything, I could summarize it really fast and say, hey, Idgham Mutaqarib for Riwayat Hassan Asim is when you have that lam that has a sukoon and the ra. Just make sure you blend these together. Same thing in Nakhlukum. You got the qaf and you got the kaf. Just make sure you blend these. Any other very similar letters coming together, place of articulation, forget about them. Doesn't concern you. If you're like, okay, I just want to learn one little rule, make it easy for me. As for mutajanis, learn these letters, the ta and the da, the ta and the ta, the tha and the dha, the dal and the ta, the dha and the dha, the ba and the meme, the that and the dha. If you just remember these combinations and you learn to take out the first letter, press on the following one, take out the first letter, press on the following, then that's the end of the lesson for Riwayat Hassan Asim. All the others are, you know, those for those that want to go extra, and for those that, you know, to bring it to your attention, just make sure that you don't practice the rule wrongly. That's all there is to it. Any questions? Any questions? I guess no questions. So that's it for today, inshallah. We'll see you all, inshallah, let me see, Saturday, Monday. I'm excited. So, assalamu alaikum. And assalamu alaikum, everyone.